Greetings, everyone. Well, during my recent downtime from the internet, one of the things I did to entertain myself was played a hell of a lot of video games. Yeah, I have quite a backlog of PS3 and even more PS2 games that I had amassed over the past few years and just hadn't got around to playing yet. So I decided to, take advantage of the time away from the eternal distraction that is the internet to actually sit down and play some of these games. And one of the ones I played was one that was actually sent to me a while back by NerdyFrag, also known as Jadzia, namely Constantine, the game based on the movie, based on the comic book. Let's actually get a closer look at the covers there just so you can see a little bit of what the game is like. Now, I'm going to talk about the game too much right now because I'm actually planning to do some videos a little ways down the road where I actually spend some proper time talking about the various games that I played during the past few months. So we'll get to my thoughts on the game later, some other time, another time. But the thing was, in playing the game, in short, I really enjoyed it. I actually had a blast playing it. I thought it was really well done, especially, because games based on movies tend to be kind of hit and miss. But I remember NerdyFrag really highly recommended this one, and that's one of the reasons she sent it to me, because she thought I would really like it. And, yeah, I did. Sorry it took me so long to play it. But I definitely enjoyed it. I just played the hell out of that. As soon as I started playing it, I just, I was hooked on it and had to play it right through to the end. So it was my game of choice for about a week. But after finishing it, I wanted to see the movie again, which sadly I haven't been able to yet because it was one of the Blu-rays I sold when I needed money a little while ago. But the good news is I always see it going for cheap, so I will get it for the collection again one of these days and watch it again. So yeah, I want to see the movie again, but even more so, I wanted to actually sit down and read some of the comics. Now, I had read a few of the comics back in the day, but hadn't really read very many of them. I just sort of read, I had a job at a video game company very, very briefly, just as a receptionist position, and it didn't last very long. But I remember in the bathroom they had the very first volume of the Hellblazer comics, namely Original Sins, and I remember reading a bunch of them while I was there, but I never finished the book, and I never got around to picking it up myself. And it had been so long since I'd read them, I really didn't remember anything about them. I remembered liking them, but I didn't remember anything about them. So I picked up the latest printing of it. Now, this is actually better than the edition that I was reading at the video game company because it's got more stuff in it than was in the original edition. So, yeah, John Constantine, Hellblazer, the comic books. That's what we're going to talk about today on the Multimedia Chronicles. Welcome back. Well, my introduction to John Constantine was not actually the Hellblazer comics. No, it was actually Sandman, specifically the very first volume of Sandman, which I picked up, I guess, in 1995 originally. This is the actual one that I had. I've kept it all these years. This particular edition is long out of print. It's gone through a couple of different printings since, all of which have had different covers. I always had a fondness for this particular cover because it was the first one that I ever saw and enjoyed, and this was really my introduction to the world of Sandman. But John Constantine actually appears in, I believe, the third issue, if I'm not mistaken. Let's see if I can find a pic of him for you here. Yeah, there we go. There he is, getting out of bed, looking all disheveled, as usual. And basically this story, he ends up meeting up with Sandman, and in this particular story arc, Sandman is looking for his various tools that he uses to create people's dreams and such. In this particular one, there's a bag of dream dust that has gone missing, and it's apparently fallen into the possession of a woman that Constantine knows. So anyway, that particular story in the first volume of Sandman was my introduction to the character of John Constantine. Now, much like Sandman, I remember seeing the original comics back when they originally came out, but for whatever reason, I just didn't pick any of them up at the time. It wasn't until, well, years later, and then now, that I'm actually finally checking them out. You know, it only took me 30 years to get around to reading them, right? Yeah, so then, yeah, somewhere around that point, I got the job with the video game company and read some of the Hellblazer comics and thought it was really cool and wanted to check out more of them, but never got around to it. And then a few years back, as you know, I was collecting Swamp Thing. And I did not actually know until I was reading these books that Swamp Thing was actually the very first appearances of John Constantine. Actually, this particular volume, volume 3, entitled The Curse, which is the third volume of Alan Moore's legendary run on the series, is the volume that features the issues that introduce Constantine. Specifically, he first appeared, I believe, in issue 37 of the saga of the Swamp Thing. So if you want to track down the back issue of that to say that, hey, you've got the first ever appearance of John Constantine, that's the one you want to be looking for. So, yeah, for the longest time, I had no idea that Constantine had first appeared strictly as a recurring guest character in Swamp Thing, of all things. And and of course, as you know, that was a comic that I wanted to check out for a long time as well, because I had some of the earlier Swamp Thing issues and really enjoyed them. And I had heard that there was wonderful things happening with Alan Moore's run, and really wanted to check it out. But of course, as with most of the Vertigo comics, didn't until years later. And now, you know, it's just fantastic and a wonderful part of my collection. So for the longest time, I thought that Hellblazer had first appeared in Hellblazer. that was it. That was basically just one of the, you know, initial launch titles of the Vertigo line, and that Sandman. I remembered seeing Sandman and Hellblazer come out around the same time. I think Hellblazer actually premiered a few months before Sandman, and yeah. So anyway, at long last, I have picked up the first volume of Hellblazer. Now, this particular edition contains issues 1 through 9 of Hellblazer, written by Jamie Delano, with artwork by John Ridgway. Now, John Ridgway is an artist that I've been familiar with for years. I remember when I was collecting the original Marvel, the original American Marvel comics that reprinted the Doctor Who comic strips from Britain. I remember John Ridgway was the artist on quite a few of those. Dave Gibbons was the artist on quite a few of those as well, you may know from Watchmen. A lot of big notable British artists who have since sort of made a name for themselves in American comics, you know, did some time on Doctor Who back in the day, so it was pretty cool. I should also mention, you know, I've been collecting all my Conan stuff for a while. This compilation of Conan stories, the original Robert E. Howard Conan stories, also features artwork by John Ridgway. He did all the illustrations in this book, so pretty cool. So anyway, in addition to the first 9 issues of Hellblazer, it also features issues 76 and 77 of Swamp Thing, which I believe were not included in the original edition of Original Sins. But this particular edition is an expanded version that throws that into the mix, because the 9th issue of Hellblazer actually leads directly into that 2-part story arc of Swamp Thing. So it's a nice kind of nice way to tie that up properly in the single volume. I also noticed that this one is numbered 1, which leads me to believe that perhaps we'll be seeing further editions of the early issues of Hellblazer in the relatively near future. When was this one published? It's fairly recently, if I recall. It says second printing publication date anywhere on it? Say on the back somewhere? No, of course not. Anyway, I'm pretty sure that this one just came out, this year sometime. But anyway, I'm hoping that they'll do more what they did like with Swamp Thing and with Sandman, and actually print, put out trade paperback editions like this of consecutive stories rather than just kind of, random collections like they have now. I mean, each collection of Hellblazer that they have out now does appear to have a complete story arc in it, but if you want like the complete story from issue 1 to 300, whatever they're up to now, you're going to have to track down some back issues in between the trade paperback volumes, and that's a bit of a pain in the ass. So what did I think? Going back to the original stories of Hellblazer. Well, obviously, I mean, having seen the movie, I was not unfamiliar with the character prior to that. I, of course, knew the character from the appearance in Sandman, an issue that I've reread many times because I thought it was a great story, and I really liked the character. And then, of course, his many appearances in Swamp Thing. In Swamp Thing, it's interesting because, it's the very early appearances of John Constantine, so his character isn't quite fully developed yet. But and he's kind of enshrouded in mystery. Like, there's something up with him. He's got something going on, and he keeps coming to Swamp Thing for help with various things that he's investigating or working on. But you never really know what his motivations are, and that's one of the things that just kind of drives Swamp Thing crazy, is he doesn't know whether or not Constantine is someone that he can trust. And it really starts to piss him off. He starts showing up all the time and stirring up shit. But he's like, oh god, every time Constantine's around, everything goes to hell. And, what does he want from me this time? But, so it's kind of fun in that respect. But at the same time, I mean, you don't know a lot about the character, which is why it's great that they spun the character off into his own comic. And Jamie Delano, I think, did a fantastic job of fleshing out the character even more beyond what Alan Moore had done in introducing and creating the character originally. The thing I really like about the Hellblazer comics that I've read so far, I really haven't read any of the more recent ones. I know that a lot, I think it was Garth Ennis and Andy Diggles and a lot of really big notable comic writers and artists have done work on Hellblazer over the years, and there's apparently just some fantastic story arcs out there. I haven't read any of those, and I definitely would like to. As I say, ideally, I'm hoping that they'll put out subsequent volumes that have more consecutive story arcs and issues in them and whatnot, so I can just kind of, collect a bunch of trade paperbacks for like $20-25 a piece, rather than having to track down a gazillion back issues for like $5, $10, $20 a piece. It's kind of crazy. I like collecting the trade paperbacks. It's nice to have a bunch of issues in one thing, and anyway, I'm kind of going off on a tangent about nothing. One of the things I really like about Hellblazer is the fact that, or about John Constantine as a character, is they always say that a character is made more interesting by his flaws. And John Constantine is definitely one flawed character. I mean, he is not a typical hero by any stretch of the imagination. I mean, if you're just looking for a straightforward story where the good guys always win and the hero always pulls through in the end, don't read Hellblazer, because that is not what you're going to get. I'd say probably a good half of the stories in the first volume, he loses badly. Constantine, there's just so many things I found really refreshingly different about it. And I think that's one of the reasons why the character and the series has endured for so long, is because of the flaws, and because he's such a not so much an anti-hero, but just in many ways just in over his head. I mean, let's face it. I mean, Constantine is definitely a unique individual in that he sees things in our world that the average person does not see. I mean, he can travel back and forth from hell and whatnot. He can talk to angels and demons, and in fact does quite often, and is aware of all the various supernatural beings, not just angels and demons, but just other supernatural beings and strange goings on in our day-to-day world that the rest of us are just not tuned into, like just cannot perceive. He's also very adept at magic, and by magic I mean like actual proper sorcery kind of magic and stuff like that, and spell casting and things like that. And he's a character that basically means well, and I think wants to do good by people, but often finds himself in situations that even he is not equipped to deal with. And there's a few stories that spring to mind. I don't want to say too much, so I don't want to give things away for those of you who want to check it out for yourself. But there's some stories in there, for example, where he finds himself in a situation where he becomes aware of some evil goings on and goes to investigate and realizes that he's too late, that he got there too late, and that all he can do is kind of wait, sit by the sidelines and watch events run their course and just try not to get killed in the process, you know? And some of it is pretty brutal. I mean, he finds himself in some pretty nasty situations where he's just completely ineffectual. And it's not like it doesn't affect him either. I mean, he feels shitty about it afterwards. It's like, you know, I wish I could have done something. And then sometimes he'll be talking to other supernatural beings about it, and they'll be saying like, well, were you really not able to do anything, or were you just a chicken shit? You know, either you're just afraid to put your own skin at risk and stuff like that. And it's great. It asks, I mean, there's so many just wonderful little moral dilemmas, and you know, there's a lot of social commentary. There's a lot of commentary about I don't want to say about organized religion, but more like how organized religion is often corrupted for, you know, not too nice things. That's really badly worded, but you know what I mean. Like, for example, one of the big story arcs in this is he's investigating this thing called the Pyramid of Prayer, and I forget, there's an organization that runs it. I forget what the organization is called now, but anyway, essentially it's like Jamie Delano's little stab at televangelism and all the evils that, you know, have gone on over the years with televangelism, mixed in with a pyramid scheme, so it's like doubly scummy. But then on top of that, that's what it is on the surface. It's a pyramid scheme to take advantage of people who are, you know, wanting to have their prayers answered by God, basically. So they're taking advantage of people and taking advantage of their, you know, their faith and whatnot for their own ill means. And as the story unfolds, it becomes very quickly apparent that this pyramid of prayer scheme, basically, there's something far darker going on with it. I mean, it is not being done for the good of anybody. It's not even being done particularly for profit. There is just some really nasty shit going on with it, and he, you know, part of it is him investigating that. And yeah, but anyway, it's if you're interested at all in like sort of the mythology of various religions and stuff like that, I recommend Sandman for much the same reason. Sandman takes more kind of the fantastical side of mythology and whatnot. Hellblazer explores more the religious side, like the religious mythologies and whatnot, and just kind of puts them into a context like, well, there's all this supernatural. I mean, because basically when you think about it, demons and angels, that's supernatural stuff, right? So they kind of take that as, you know, demons and angels and heaven and hell have all their various plots and schemes and things, and dealing with each other, and dealing and corrupting man or saving man, and just all these different things going on. And Constantine often finds himself in the middle of it all, and they just kind of play with it, and they play with him, and they play with us, the reader, and take us on these crazy journeys. But yeah, needless to say, to sum up, I am thoroughly enjoying Hellblazer, and I definitely hope to pick up more volumes of it in the very near future. So yeah, so check it out if you like, you know, if you like religious mythology and all that fun stuff, and a little bit of supernatural horror thrown into the mix, and you love a good anti-hero, check out Hellblazer. You won't be disappointed. Alrighty, that is it from me to you for now. So until next time, thanks for watching, and sayonara. pants on instead of my shorts. People don't see my gnarly knees. Pants. Pants.